Hundreds of emails from Jeffrey Epstein's personal account are shedding new light on his relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. The emails reviewed by Bloomberg contain mentions of Donald Trump and others, including a 2006 exchange where the convicted sex trafficker told Maxwell to, quote, remove Trump after Maxwell asked him to review a list of high-powered people. Other emails detail lavish gifts, some worth tens of thousands of dollars, sent to Epstein's associates. MSNBC has not obtained or verified the emails. Bloomberg says they vetted them through cryptographic and metadata analysis, as well as corroboration with external sources. Joining us now, senior reporter for The Bulwark, Will Sommer, senior writer for Wired and author of the Inner Loop newsletter, Jake LaHutte, and Lisa Rubin, who is back with us. So, Lisa, what can you tell us about this Bloomberg reporting and these emails?
Well, I think the most important takeaway from this, Katie, is this is the first reporting that demonstrates how Ghislaine Maxwell was not telling Todd Blanche the complete truth. Right? She described herself as having a much diminished role around Jeffrey Epstein after 2003. But as Bloomberg reports in one of the most memorable lines of their reporting, the emails that they collected, and there were 18,000 of them, show that Epstein and Maxwell, just through one account owned by Jeffrey Epstein, a Yahoo account, exchanged at least 203 messages during the first 6 months of 2008 at a rate of more than one a day. And we know that Jeffrey Epstein used multiple other email accounts. How do we know that? Because in litigation that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were part of, where they were sued by victims or victims sued other institutions, we've seen those emails. We've also seen some of those emails, for example, through the New York Times reporting about Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with J.P. Morgan. So the very volume of communications between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, as well as the substance, put the lie to her assertion that she was a non-entity in Jeffrey Epstein's world by the period of time that prosecutors have largely focused on.
I want to ask about the gifts, Will, to other big-name people that have come up in these emails. And I'll read a little bit more from the Bloomberg piece. The emails include a spreadsheet itemizing nearly 2,000 gifts, luxury items and payments totaling $1.8 million, with notations indicating they were intended for Epstein's friends, business associates, and victims. The spreadsheet, which was created by one of Epstein's accountants, includes a $35,000 watch that was earmarked for a former Bill Clinton aide, a $71,000 purchase at a Lexus dealership for one of Epstein's lawyers, and other items, such as lingerie and chocolates, some for teenage girls who later lodged sexual abuse complaints against Epstein and Maxwell. The spreadsheet indicates that Maxwell helped Epstein arrange many of the items. It doesn't specify whether the intended recipients were ever offered or actually accepted the gifts. I can't think of a scenario where, you're gifting people this much money. It's unusual.
It's bizarre. I mean, I think this is obviously a big scoop in terms of this cache of emails. And it's just a reminder of how well connected Jeffrey Epstein was. And as you said, I mean, I think all of the unanswered questions that still surround him and the people he knew and his activities. And I think, again, that gets at why so many people in the public want answers here, why they expected the Trump administration to investigate further, as they promised repeatedly that they would, and then why it's been so jarring that the administration is trying to move on from this so abruptly. I mean, you mentioned, again, we got another reminder here of Trump's relationship with Epstein. I mean, being mentioned in this email by Epstein, although it's not clear in what context. So again, I mean, it's something that raises more questions.
Let me read the part about Donald Trump from the report as well. Trump's name surfaced again around the time Epstein was making an intense back-channel lobbying effort to get federal prosecutors to drop their case against him. It was an email dated August 23rd, 2007, a month before Epstein signed the non-prosecution agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida that ended the federal component of the Epstein investigation. The emails indicate that Maxwell may have been referring to a team of reporters covering Epstein who she expected would be seeking information from Trump. And the quote from the email from Maxwell to Epstein says, "You have to assume they went to Donald Trump, then Gossman, the docs in WPB, Pashow, etc." Can you help me understand what any of that means, Jake?
That was the really confusing thing about, one, a lot of these emails had the initial incoming deleted and then only the sent email in response. I also do want to give a shout out to Drew Marotra, who broke the missing minutes story for us at Wired before joining the evil empire at Bloomberg. But the weird thing I've noticed about the fallout from the story and kind of the lack of response from the White House is that, they gave a quippy comment saying this is yet another fake news story. But I think the walls are really starting to close in terms of the actual consequences that we're seeing from this. The the UK's ambassador for us fired over this. And at this point, what else could come? What other troves of documents are out there? Those are huge unanswered questions.
So, Jake, can you give me a little bit more about the significance of what you just said? Losing the ambassador, the UK ambassador to the US, it's significant because he was known as something of a Trump whisperer. Why was he taken out of that position? What relationship did he have with Epstein that made him so controversial over in the UK?
Yeah, I think the new revelations with Mandelson were that he had been speaking with Epstein far longer after he had initially sort of tried to spin his relationship with him before all these. Likewise, the timeline of Ghislaine Maxwell's relationship with Epstein is very complicated by these emails. And the one weird little tidbit I heard from a Trump advisor this must be now 2 months back, was they said there are international considerations for how they're handling the messaging and information on that case. And the way I read that was someone like a Prince Andrew. There are other international figures where the Trump administration is spread across all these fronts, trying to do tariff deals, trying to end wars. And it's not just his reputation in the mix, but also all these relations with our key allies.
Lisa?
I want to say something more about Peter Mandelson because I think it goes back to the birthday book as well. Peter Mandelson is someone who has a submission in that birthday book. He is pictured in his own submission in the birthday book. And Peter Mandelson has a long-term partner, a male partner, but nonetheless is making a reference to the quote-unquote interesting guests at Little Jeff Island. He has a picture of himself with two women whose faces are blocked out. And he's joking around about the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was known to sort of flit here and there and everywhere. So you could be staying on the island and Jeffrey Epstein would disappear and you would be left alone with his, quote, interesting guest. That's Peter Mandelson's own words. So Peter Mandelson is sort of indicating in his birthday book submission that even if he didn't know that these women were underage, he was well aware of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual proclivities and at the very least, the fact that he preferred young girls.
Governor Cox, thanks for being with us. I'm wondering what stands out to you, what you know about the suspect right now. Is there something about his history that really stands out to you?
Well, I think maybe what stands out is that nothing stands out the way you would normally expect. This is a good family, a normal childhood, all of those things that you would hope would never lead to something like this, and sadly it did. So there's so much we still don't know, but certainly there was a radicalization that happened in a fairly short amount of time. And again, that's not too. Sometimes when we talk about people getting radicalized, that's to blame others instead of the person. And I don't want to take away that agency. This person made a terrible decision and will pay the price for that. But I do think it is important and instructive that we try to do as much as possible to learn the types of influences that would lead someone to make just such an awful, awful, evil decision.
And I want to talk to you about that because you've talked very strongly about social media. I don't do a lot of social media, but I was looking at it today, and there's endless conspiracy theories about other people involved. There's videos of people making hand signals that seem to be people wiping their hair or adjusting their hats. Do you have any evidence that there was anybody else involved in this?
Absolutely none. And again, the investigation is still ongoing. There's a lot we don't know that we're still piecing together. But there's enough that we do know that makes it very clear that this was one person and a very again tragic, terrible, awful decision. But no one else involved.
You've called this a watershed event in our history, and that the chapter is still being written about what kind of a watershed event is it, what direction the country goes from here. Can you just talk about that a little bit, and how do we all help write that history?
Yeah, so to me, I look at this. It feels like something happened. This is big, and it's big for a reason. Again, somebody who was involved in political speech, political discourse, doing the very thing that is the foundation for our democratic republic, and then losing their life, which makes it harder for all of us to do the thing that we should do, and that's dangerous in a different type of way. And so the question is, we've certainly been building to this. I don't think it's a surprise to most people that something terrible like this could happen. President Trump was almost assassinated a year ago. So the question is this the end of a very dark era? Does this wake us up in a way that we actually change? Or is this just the beginning of something far, far worse? And what will write that history, what that will depend on is all of us. It's not any one person who's going to change this. If we're waiting for a leader from Washington, D.C. or Utah or anywhere else, then it will never happen. And that's why I just feel so strongly that it's incumbent on every single one of us to look into our souls and decide, do we want this to continue? Are we going to be the part that continues? Or are we going to try something different? And that's the only way we're going to break out of this fever dream.
And there are entire, media ecosystems which profit from outrage and which pump out outrage and that is part of the algorithm. You have influencers on all sides of the aisle, but we've heard, very well-known ones on the right. Even one commentator on Fox News talking about war. When you hear that word being used, war, what do you say?
Well, we say stuff like that, and that's normal. It's been part of the vernacular. We use it in sports terms sometimes. We talk about a battle, a war, right? And we now do it in political terms. And I don't think most people actually mean it, because war is my kids and my grandkids getting shot in the street. That's no one wants that. The problem is that there are people out there who, when they hear that, they actually believe it, and it leads to things like we're seeing today. But again, people are angry, and rightfully so. They don't need to be lectured by me or CNN or anybody else when they're feeling anger. But my question is, what do we do with that? And that's why I think, again, Charlie's words are so important on this. He did preach nonviolence. Whether you loved him or whether you hated him, he truly believed that talking to each other would help us prevent violence, and that we desperately need more of that. And so that's all I'm trying to do is trying to turn that introspection in each of us. Me too, by the way. I screw up all of the time. The problem, Anderson, is that the incentive structure in social media, and quite frankly, the incentive structure in politics right now, it doesn't lead to depolarization. The radicalization that happens through those algorithms on social media. And again, that's why Charlie said, when things get dark and rough, to put your phone down, to read scripture, to hug your family. That's what we should be doing.
Well, I actually want to put the social media post that he said, because you quoted this earlier. He said this in June. I'm putting it up on the screen. He said, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. It's interesting, this suspect, from what I've, read, his parents are registered Republicans. It seems like, he has a good family. I'm not sure how much he is online and living online, but we have certainly seen many young men getting lost online. What do you do about that as a legislator? I mean, some schools are kind of slow to really figure out plans for social media, for phone use in schools even.
It's the greatest mistake we've made in the last decade, and I'm very proud that Utah is leading the nation. We passed the most comprehensive social media bills 2 years ago. We're still fighting in the courts over those bills. We passed a ban on cell phones in classrooms this year. We have to do this. The research is incredibly clear. Jonathan Haidt, who I know you know, has been on the programs here. His book, Anxious Generation, it lays that out very clearly. but we really are pushing, and AI is only going to make this worse, especially for our young men. We've got an entire generation that is struggling, that has been lost. They've lost purpose and meaning, and we've got to find purpose and meaning again.
Governor Spencer Cox, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anderson.